Well, gang, as I'm working on this Mustang, I'm rooting through the parts and pieces and figuring out what needs to go together. And to put these fenders on, I need to put the splash shields in place. Now you can order these as a pre-assembled kit, which I'm going to recommend. But I'm going to assemble these. Now there's a replacement metal shield, and there's also a kit, and it comes with the pieces of rubber. There's a piece that goes on this edge like that, and then this piece which sits up on top basically like that, and you can see it matches the shape of the fender. And like I said, you can get these pre-assembled. I think they're like $18. I would recommend doing that, because at this point, because I have these pieces and I'm not going to get new ones, and this is what was provided to me. This rubber kit comes with the rubber pieces and also some staples. So what I did is I found a picture of one of these, and I found there's 12 locations for staples, and all I'm going to do is drill some holes and press these staples through and bend them over just like you would normally with a staple. But I'm doing this to show you this and some other things I'm going to be doing to put the fenders on the car, because that's my next step. So I got to get all this done, and then I can move on and start installing the fenders. So I'm making progress. I laid out my whole pattern like I said, and then I came back and set the piece of rubber on top and kind of had to hold it in place and drill the holes, because there's no way you're going to find the staples or push them through this piece of material. And then the hard part was trying to find a way to bend over the staples, because you know, it's not like having a staple gun with a backside. So what I ended up doing was taking what we call in the aircraft industry a bucking bar, but really a dolly, and I set it behind it, held pressure on it, and then just used a hammer to nail over the ends of the staples. So far it's working good. Hope that makes sense. But once I get all these put together, then I'll move on. But again, I would recommend just buying these pre-assembled. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, so the splash shields are assembled and installed on the car. I think they look pretty good. Now I did have to drill some holes, because this panel, the side panel, is new, as is the firewall and the cowl. So I had to drill the holes. And these holes, the splash panel, it was set up to have these for the bolt to come out from the inside. So I just drilled the holes bigger on this panel. I also had to drill this hole, which was part of technically the outer or the inner rocker, because it comes and wraps around and creates this flange. And like I said, the cowl. So I think it looks good. It's going to serve its purpose, I guess. I may come back later and add some sealant in here, because I don't like that gap, and just try to tighten it up a little bit. But beyond that, I want to show you something else. You know, of course, the apron and the firewall and everything is freshly painted with DP90, and I put the clips on for the bolts. I mean, you know, for the fender bolts. But I want to show you a trick. Now, when you go to a car show or something, you'll see these cars, and you don't see scratches in most cases where somebody put the fender on and then had to move it around and adjust it and play with it. Well, here's a trick to get away from getting those scratches. There's the bolt. You know, look, there's a piece of plastic with some writing on it. All I did, take an old antifreeze jug, cut some strips out, drill some holes, and when you install the fender, you leave these underneath, each one, until you get it exactly where you want it. And then you take out one bolt at a time, put it back in, and tighten it. And what that does, eliminates all that sliding around and, you know, scratching you can get. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to install the fender, but I may or may not, probably going to not remove the plastic. The reason is, the guy that I'm doing this for, I think he may end up pulling the front fenders back off, because he's going to redo this front suspension. So if I lock him in and then he decides to take them off, it could create some problems. So for now, I'm probably going to bolt them on, and leave the plastic in place and drive on. Just one more thing before I get too far along. On these fenders, there's a bolt on the inside, and some people don't know about this, but this actually goes into that side panel behind the firewall, as I pointed to earlier. It's got a retaining clip that locks it in, and a slot. It's like a key. It slides in the back, and then it's got this foam pad that goes on top of it. Now, I don't know if they added that for what, for vibration? I don't know, but just one of those things. It has to be put on. So now you know. So the fender is just sitting on the car. Now let's go back a little bit. I want to tell you that whenever you're assembling something like this, you always want to start with the door. Your door can't be adjusted properly with the fender on the car. And some people will try to put the fender on and then try to mount the door, and then they're fighting with gaps and everything else. Well, I already know the door is set exactly where I want it. That said, the fender is now sitting on the car, and I've got my little plastic pieces underneath the bolts. And on this Mustang, there's 6 bolts up here on the top, and there's 2 bolts down here. These 2 are probably more critical than anything else, right there. And the reason that is, the fender, you can move it back and forth somewhat. You can even move it in and out. But to get the reveal correct down here at the door, and this is just hanging out, and again, it's just sitting on the car. But to get that correct, you may have to rotate the fender. The fender will flex in multiple angles. So we already know it's going to go in to fill this gap, and to make an adjustment, and see if I can show you this. If I pull out on this part of the fender, watch the fender change shape. I don't know if you can see that very much, but what that'll do, by rotating this part up, it'll let that part come down somewhat, because the fender is very flexible. So multiple adjustments will need to be made to get this thing to sit just right on the car. So don't get burdened down with just tightening 1 bolt and thinking you're done, or 2 bolts and going, oh, something's not right, and then pushing in around on a fender somewhere. It takes multiple positioning of this fender, and I can tell you from experience, you could put the fender on 10 times, and 10 times it's going to fit different. So I'm going to adjust this fender and then show you what it looks like afterwards. So there's the fender mostly adjusted. Now again, I was just trying to get the gap pretty close to accurate, you know, get the body lines to line up, which they do. And I had to enlarge the hole in the bottom of the fender just a little bit. You know, I welded the nuts solid. Not that it would have mattered, because it was still the same location, but I had to open up that hole a little bit so I could move the fender just a little bit. And I'm still not done, because once I get the fenders on, then I have to put the hood on. And so there's still going to be some adjustment I may need to make left and right to compensate for the gaps or the reveal from the hood to the fender. So so far I'm happy with it. And one thing maybe I didn't make it clear enough, I should say, with these 2 bolts up here in this inner structure, whenever you loosen those and rotate up, it technically allows this part of the fender to go forward, because you're taking material basically upward, and this, I know it's kind of like an optical illusion, but this part of the fender goes forward just slightly. Trust me, it works. So hope that makes sense. I'm going to drive on and get the other fender on and see how much I can get done today.